(7:00), the meeting will come to order. I'm Grace Lesbrunz, Cascade Supervisor. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Trustee Nordhook.
Here.
Trustee McDonald is excused. Supervisor Lesbrunz.
Here.
Treasurer Corrigan.
Here.
Trustee Kessel.
Here.
Trustee Shipley.
Present.
Clerk Slater here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Motion or discussion for approval of tonight's agenda.
Shipley makes a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Support.
A motion by Trustee Shipley, supported by Trustee Nordhook to approve the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Having no presentations tonight, we move on to Article 5, public comments. This first portion of public comments is for the public to comment on anything that is on tonight's agenda that is not already scheduled for a public hearing. Later on in the meeting, we'll have another part, another section for public comments, and that's the public's time to comment on anything, whether it's on tonight's agenda or not. So tonight, any public comments right now are welcome on the Tuffy lease, the corner of Thornapple River Drive and Cascade Road, the park, potential park around the library, the potential park at the property known as Church on the Hill, now known as Wycliffe Trailhead Park, streetlights, early voting, polling locations, and also rescission of the ordinance that requires residents to hook up to city water upon sale of their house. Yeah, welcome. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes and state your name and address for record keeping.
All right. Yeah, my name is Andrew. Can you go to the
Can you step to the podium, please?
Thank you.
all right. Yeah, current resident of Cascade, live on Cascade Road. I'm gonna make some comments about the decision or ordinance to hook up upon home sale. For
Yes.
septic. Currently
Welcome.
have a home on Cascade and it is on well and septic. Ironically, I was here in 2018 when that was voted in and made comment back then too. So kind of excited to see this come full circle, see a couple familiar faces from back then. But yeah, just wanted to start and say, you know, I believe this is actually a burden to residents. And it doesn't help the residents of this township at all. You know, I would like to think that we have a wonderful township that's full of individuals who are responsible and caretakers of their home. And they take that seriously. For myself, I've made improvements and I've continued to maintain the septic. And if there was ever a problem, would take that seriously, both for my family and my neighbors. You know, if I ever did have to hook up, that would be, you know, wouldn't be excited, but, you know, I would understand that my septic had gone bad and then I could use that money towards the hookup of our city sewer. You know, requiring folks to do that upon sale, on the other hand, you know, just for example, when we bought our house in 2018, I had this, when this went in, it was actually during the closing process, so I wasn't able to negotiate just due to timing, and that was okay. But I got a quote from McDonald Plumbing and it was 20 grand in 2018. And I can only imagine like post pandemic what it is. And so, you know, like I have a family, wife, and now 2 kids, which we didn't have when we bought a 2-bedroom house, and we're actively considering whether to do an addition or to sell. And so having you know, 25, 30 grand hit is a big financial burden for us. And just, you know, in addition, let's say we have a resident who, for whatever reason, is nefarious and unfortunately is not maintaining their home, their well or septic. We have a health department with stringent policies and procedures that are in place to handle these situations. I've seen that happen before. And, you know, today we ask that we trust the residents of this township to take their home serious. And we also trust the health department to fill in when individuals don't do that. So, yeah, just wanted to thank you guys for bringing this back. Now for me to come and comments and your time today.
Thank you, Andrew.
Hello. My name is Nick Hines, attorney for Awesome Tires, which here to talk about Tuffy lease. I know we covered this extensively last meeting. So I'll be brief. A couple points I just want to make that would be helpful for the township. Right now, rent at the facility is about $6,300 per month or $75,000 per year. So we're looking at rent over the next 101 months of the remaining term of the lease of about $636,000. From what I can tell, and based on discussions with Scott Hogan, and I know he's not here tonight, he might be on the phone. Property was bought with debt of $800,000, of which there's $595,000 in principal and another $72,000 in interest left. So you've got about $667,000 in remaining payments. So, you know, by my tally, rent coming in for the remaining term is very close to what's left from a debt perspective or a debt payoff perspective. And then I know it would be helpful just to talk a little bit about the type of transaction. So Awesome Tires would prefer to take this as an asset transaction, which requires an assignment of the lease, right? So our tenant would go from F&F Service Centers currently to Awesome Tires LLC. Now, if for whatever reason the township decides not to approve of our assignment, we would likely have to switch over into a stock transaction, which is not as beneficial to Awesome Tires from a tax perspective and for various other reasons. Which means I think we would be back here seeking township approval again under a different standard. And under that different standard, which is our reasonableness standard, I mean, you've got Scott Hogan's thoughts on that. I don't need to go into detail there. But I would say that because a stock transaction is not as beneficial to our buyer, we would probably have to keep the full 9 years remaining on the lease. And that's really all I have to add. Questions?
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Hi there, Scott Van Solkema again. Regarding Tuffy, has anybody actually talked to the people that own Tuffy to see what they want to do? Obviously, this is the second time that a leasee has come before the board to ask for the transfer of lease or what have you. I stopped down there today. I talked to Bobby. He's not the owner. He just sort of runs the place. And he's saying that Jay's sick and old. It's like, if maybe the township just wants to go, hey, what do you want to do? Do you just want to get out and let him break his lease? Then that way you guys can take possession of the building and tear it down and tear down the house behind it and actually do what was the initial plan for, as opposed to waiting for 8 years. We have the money to pay for it and just be done with it. You know, that's another opportunity or another option that you guys can think of to do, as opposed to dragging this out for 8 years. Let this guy or Awesome Tires put more money into the building and do whatever. And then we're just sort of kicking the can down the road. I mean, just say no, maybe go talk to him. I don't know if there's any penalties or what have you that's assessed in this original purchase deal that was done years ago, but just let him just walk away and you get the building and the property, and then he goes away, and that's another option. I didn't see that listed in the packet, so someone else to think about. Then yes, that's about it for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ziegler, is there anyone virtually that would like to comment?
James. Go ahead.
Good evening, sir.
It looks like he is still muted, even though I've unmuted. So James, if you can unmute yourself, feel free to comment.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. All right, so I gotta start over again. All right. So my name is James White. I'm a resident of Grand Rapids, and I used to ride the bus out to Grand.
James? James?
Yes.
James,
Yes.
this is the first public comment round, and now is the time to comment on anything on tonight's agenda. That's not on tonight's agenda. So please hold on for a minute. And once we get to the end of conducting our business, you're welcome to comment on the bus or whatever, what other issues you have. But until then, now is not the time. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? There a motion or discussion for approval of tonight's consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve.
It's a motion by trustee Kessel, supported by treasurer Corstange to approve the consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Financial actions, those would be consider the approval of the August 2023 payroll, payables, and transfers, as well as a request for invoices to be paid on September 14th, tomorrow, 2023. Discussion or a motion? Before we make, I just want to comment, thank you, Manager Andrzejewski, and also new Manager Smith for really spearheading this so that we can approve things before they're paid instead of months after. Makes a big difference.
Shipley makes a motion to approve the August 2023 payroll, payables, and transfers.
Both. Also the request for invoices.
Yes, also subpart B, the request for invoices to be paid on 9/14.
Support. The motion by trustee Shipley, supported by treasurer Corstange to approve both of tonight's financial actions. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Article 8, unfinished business. Consider the approval of the Tuffy lease assignment offer.
I make a motion to remove this from the table. Support.
It's a motion by trustee Kessel, supported by trustee Nordhook, to remove this item from the table. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We will now discuss this item. I believe we have Attorney Hogan here virtually. Would staff like to introduce this before we turn it over to Mr. Hogan?
Well, you have before you either to assign the Tuffy Muffler lease to a new owner, new buyer, or to continue to lease as it is. Do you want a little bit about the pros and cons or not?
No. Well, depends on who's saying them. Ted, I think we got you.
Yeah, I would say it. That's what I mean. If you want to hear it.
Depends on what you have to say.
Okay, so anyway, it's before you to decide whether or not to transfer the lease or to let the lease run out as it currently stands.
Thank you for the updated financial information. It was my understanding, I think, from trustee Kessel at the last meeting that we put down a $300,000 deposit on it, but it turns out looking at the financials that you pulled, we put down nothing.
No, it's an $800,000 loan. And the gentleman who spoke was pretty close. There's $597,000, about $600,000 left, plus the interest.
Yeah, I thought we had put it down, but Ted looked it up and found that we had not put down anything. So that's correct.
Does anyone, Trustee Kessel, you were there then, any recollection on the rationale behind that? When we have 2.5 million or so in the EDA?
Yeah, we didn't have that 2.5 million in the DDA back then. That was one thing. The DDA had not, they had very little money and then the DDA has since been built up. So we were able to finance that with United Bank and at a good rate. So we did the term that we did, and we recognized that at the time, the amount of payment they were going to get with the acceleration clause would be enough to retire the debt in the term of the lease. So that was our rationale. We didn't have to take the money. We didn't have the money in the DDA then to pay $800,000. The one thing that was written in here by Scott Hogan that for me was difficult to understand, and I'd want to know more. He said that they reviewed the January 22 to present, and it appears to be a successful operation. Well, I can tell you if I was going to make a commercial loan on this building, I'd want 3 years of financials, and I want to see how they cash flow to determine whether they can afford the debt. It also says on here that the lender wasn't going to do a loan to amortize in any less than 9 years. The remaining term, it's 9 years and they wouldn't go lower than 8 years. I don't quite understand that. If there's an SBA involved, SBA typically follows the lender terms. So lender terms are usually 5 years, and then they reset the rate. So I don't know about that, but I know that we bought the property with the intent on developing it. And I heard Scott say tonight, and he's probably right, that the owner is ill, and I would like to pursue the option of whether he wants to break the lease and just let him out of it and acquire the property now, because if we're going to wait 9 years or 8 years to develop it, that's a lot longer than we anticipated.
Agreed.
And I'm going to say I agree with you as well. And I think that you, Manager Smith, that can be an assignment for him, that we would want him to come back to us with more options, I guess, as it relates to what you just said with the current owner.
I think that's smart. This, like we said last time, this property is central to the bridge, which is getting the pedestrian and bike enhancements. It's central to Tassel Park and any village developments. So before we commit arguably the next two board of trustees to an 8-year commitment, and that doesn't allow us to do any development, I think we look more closely at the financials at a minimum and not rush into that decision tonight. Or we simply say we'll pass for now and approach the current owner about getting out of his lease.
I can speak for the current owner. I represent the current owner. He has no interest in tearing up the lease.
This is the second time in how many months that he's shopped it around and come to the township? Just so you know, message to so that if it does come up, I don't think anyone on this board, if he were unable for any reasons, whatever, to no longer fulfill the obligation of his lease, the township has no interest that I'm aware of going after him legally, even though we do. We would rather get, possession of the property. I don't think anyone's got any interest of going after him if he's willing to just.
Yeah, he's not. It's a profitable business and has value, which is why he's looking to sell it. But I think fundamentally, I would ask you to ask Scott. I keep hearing a new commitment to an 8-year term or a 9-year term. That commitment was made some time ago. So there isn't the concept of the townships making a new commitment to a longer lease.
We are absolutely not longer. We are making an 8-year commitment when clearly the current person who occupies that building, who for whatever reasons is looking to get out from operating that business. And this is the key property for any type of village, park, central area location, enhancement. We don't want to be a landlord. We want that property so that we can extend Tassel Park and proceed on the number one priority of residents in our strategic plan. So we get it. He wants to sell it. We want the property. So
I would just ask you to ask Scott, are you currently obligated to a 9-year term? The answer is yes.
right.
So
And the answer is
in front of you is an opportunity to change that from a 9-year term to an 8-year.
Yep. And a lot can happen in 8 years. And if we commit to 8 years, which frankly, what's the difference between 8 or 9 years? Not that much. In the meantime, he's clearly thinking of moving on in his business relationships, at which point we would unnecessarily give up our ability to refuse the lease transfer. When he's clearly looking to transfer the lease, right now we have the ability to take that back for any reason. So I think it's pretty foolish to give up that when he's clearly looking to transfer the lease, to give up that when we don't want to be a landlord, we want that property.
I think then that's the question you need to put to Scott.
Scott doesn't make policy decisions. Scott gave us the law, which we have. You're just not getting the answer that you want to hear.
That may be true, but I think it's also important to clarify that you don't have the ability to.
Upon transfer of the lease, the township has the ability to say no to that lease being transferred for any reason. This is the second time he's shopped around transferring that lease. We have the ability to say no, which is why you're here asking us. Personally, that's the number one project on our strategic plan. I don't know why this board would naively just say, sure, we'll stall that for another 8 years when your client is clearly shopping around to transfer the lease. So at this point, I would entertain any motions or further discussions, but we appreciate the input.
I got a couple of questions. So if he doesn't transfer the lease and we get the chunk of land,
No. If he doesn't transfer the lease, it's up to him.
Yeah.
We have the right upon his desire to transfer to say no, which is what they don't want us to do.
okay,
And we would give up our right to take that right if we agree to it. That right goes away.
have we got the funding to carry out the next step?
How much do we have in our DDA balance right now? Because I was told twice by old management that if we didn't start spending, the county could come knocking at our doors. We have more than enough money. This is holding up any potential development in this village area.
Okay.
I don't think we should do it. At a minimum, if we're going to agree to that, I think we need a little more information, and we should at a minimum allow our new manager to give this board an analysis as we always have in the past. We haven't heard from the DDA. Certainly a lot of those members were around when this was done. I would suggest either we push it back. I'm not comfortable agreeing to lock ourselves into 8 years, or I would make a motion to just say, no, thank you. At this point, we're not going to agree to the transfer. Further discussion, actual motion?
I do think it would be a good idea for Jade to talk to the owner and find out if he would like to get out of the lease. I think that's a very relevant thing to do and appropriate. And depending upon that answer, we can discuss it further. So I'd make a motion like I did last time to table it until we can find out that information.
I'll second. Some further discussion? So motion by trustee Kessel, supported by Supervisor Lesperance, to once again table this unfinished business to a later meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. New business, Article 9. First, resolution to establish Friendship Park. I believe we have our new Parks Director, our first Parks Director, Ms. Melanie Mannion, here to walk us through that. Welcome.
Thank you. And I smartly did not bring a presentation this time, even though it is up and running, thank goodness. Again, today, and I don't know, Lulu, if you want to join us. Okay. Well, I am here to present a resolution to change our current gathering place that you have seen many presentations on from Mrs. Brown and also Wes Landon on the development of the area around this beautiful library. I was very fortunate when I first started. It was one of the first meetings that I had and learned of the plans and immediately thought of all the opportunities that we could partner with the library, especially because of the fact that they're using native plants. They are doing ecological restoration on the island. We've already been, as part of our buildings and grounds operation, been managing the invasive species with the Kent Conservation District. And we already, the library had already engaged the buildings and grounds and the township employees on looking at the future management of the property. So we have already planned on, and we are currently mowing the property, and this will significantly reduce the mowing with the plantings. But we were already slated to do plowing and all their maintenance on the property. So I was thrilled when Mrs. Brown came to me and asked if it could actually become an official park. And I said, of course, but we needed to bring that to the Parks Committee, and we discussed that at, I believe, our July meeting, and they unanimously agreed that it should be a park, and it would be our 8th park. Additionally, and again, I want to give full credit to Mrs. Brown on this one because she came up with the idea of calling it Friendship Park. Not only because this is really capturing the intent of the gathering space that is within the strategic plan, our parks master plan, and also the DDA plan in trying to build create a place of community and a place for us to gather, have events, and really restore our community's excitement to be together. And they already did this during COVID. So that outdoor space had already been utilized, and that was a perfect example of how it could be used. And she also wanted to honor one of the actual first donors that stepped forward in this project, which was the Friends of the Library. And so that's where the name Friendship Park comes. So with that, the resolution is in the packet, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I think that's a great idea.
Thanks.
I really do. I like that idea very much.
Yeah.
Call it Friendship Park. It's a good name. It's good logic.
Couple of things, the change in the name
Yes.
will probably be well accepted by the Gathering Place Restaurant down on the corner.
Absolutely. I thought the same thing, actually.
Because residents of this township said, are they tearing that down and gonna make a park there? Are they gonna connect the two or what? Secondly,
Good point.
if it's changed to a park, I would expect that it would come under the purview and the management and the decision-making and the financial responsibility of our Parks Department. Is our Parks Department prepared to do that?
Absolutely. Clearly, we need to work with the library staff and looking at long-term maintenance. There is but that is, as we have discussed in previous meetings, something that we really don't have a grasp on fully for all of our parks at this point is really what our long-term maintenance costs are of our parks. And that is my primary responsibility. And this would be added to that responsibility is determining our capital improvement plan, which again, we do not currently have, and our annual maintenance cost. And so this would just be added into this. And it would be something that we might want to, when we're considering going for a millage, this is one of those items that this would support.
I think this is such a popular project that now that we have you and, we're building relationships, that there's a lot of benefactors or potential benefactors, businesses or private residents, that this is something that people could really get behind, and we potentially could have some private support for also.
I agree wholeheartedly. In fact, one of the great things when I first went to those meetings and then I went to the DDA meeting where Mrs. Brown and West Landon presented, I was just amazed at the support from the DDA of what they saw as being the benefit of this area. Again, library is a great place naturally to gather, and this will be even more because it'll expand the surface area of being able to gather. Right now, it's so much is concentrated in here, and that's an underutilized space that really will expand what they're able to do.
The name is perfect, and especially considering the design, it's an outdoor extension of our library space that all different ages and all different people can enjoy. The real hang up for me was the plan that was out here hanging around from way before I was supervisor, that had the skate park, the climbing wall, the amphitheater, the name, whatever else is concrete, all shoved into that. This is the opposite of that. And I think the community is going to just love it.
And, one of the things that, these outdoor spaces where you have a lot of literature showing that this is not only important, obviously, for the gathering, but also for the learning, that exploration. And to speak to what you were saying, one of the reasons I love these passive recreation areas versus those active is the maintenance cost. It is a lot less when you're talking about just mowing an occasional trail versus mowing I should know how many acres it is. Maybe Lulu knows, but it's a lot more than what we're going to be mowing when we just were mowing a pathway, when we'll be mowing a pathway. So the maintenance cost will be significantly less.
Right. And I just want to thank you for the background on the name. When I first saw it, I just kind of assumed just what you said. There's so many young children within our township that come here for programs within the park, and the outdoor exploration to me is a great way for them to meet their first friends a lot out there as well. So when I had heard the name, that's kind of what came to my mind, but it's really nice to hear the background to it as well.
I just must say, our library manager is brilliant.
Yeah, she really is.
Lots of new friendships being developed here.
Hopefully, one of the things we're even starting to see today, we did a bingo hour. Because we're noticing we have a significant amount of either adults with different cognitive abilities, or just some of our seniors are coming in and they're saying, we have no one to talk to. So they're just coming and wanting to spend time with people. And we have a staff that's prepared to do that. But related to the maintenance, we've priced it out from Wes. I think the first 3 years, he's estimating about $15,000 if his company was going to do it. The Friends are prepared and they have enough cash flow, not only to honor their commitment of the donation to the park, but also to carry for the maintenance for the first 3 years. They're also planning to do a fundraising campaign, just waiting for some of the additional details to come down about bench styles. And then once we have bench styles, they're going to be doing fundraising for the park too. So they have a separate fund to help the township or whatever the parks needs.
And I can speak that the first 3 years, the reason why that was involved, restoration of areas is always most expensive in those first 3 years. After that, maintenance costs drop precipitously.
I love the multi-generational, without saying it, without just the setup itself. I remember when our first child was born, this daycare, it's connected just generations. It's connected to the Y.
Yes.
So the idea is it's a Porter Hills assistant living, but then there's a daycare in it, right? So I had all these visions of, all the nice grandmas were going to hold my baby while I had to go to work. And the reality is he was pushed around in a stroller, like a 6-kid stroller. And one of the residents was like, "Are those children up for adoption?" It was anyways, they're playing out in this in the green area, and all the residents get to watch them. Not that the people who are going to go to this outdoor space are all, geriatric assisted living center people, not at all. But the idea is it just allows people to come together naturally. And we need more of that, especially today with screens and everything. It's just a brilliant design. Probably a poor example visually for that design, but it's
true though.
Should be. There's also a grant that we've applied for. When will we know about?
September. What are we now?
September.
Yes, it should be any day now. The RAP grant, that is through the, oh my goodness, what is that?
The Right Place.
Right Place. Thank you. The Right Place. And, in looking at it and speaking with them, I feel confident that we have a good chance of receiving those funds. And that was for $500,000.
So we're hoping to build up a fund that will take care of itself for a while.
So the DDA has it covered, but in the event that we are able to get that funding, that would secure up $500,000 for other projects.
Aye.
In the past, when we acquired park property, the residents of this township were led to believe that part of that park property was going to be used for master gardener education. They were going to have master gardeners come in. I would suggest to you that perhaps if the natural space is a way to go, perhaps you include some type of gardening instruction for the residents at no charge to the residents. Especially since I believe one of your initial tasks were to help the residents control deer herd damage.
This is a planted question. Just it's a brilliant question.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I will just say the chair of our Parks Committee, I'm not sure if you know this, she used to work for Michigan State Extension Office through the Master Gardening Program, but she actually ran the Master Naturalist Program. And I used to teach one of her classes every year. That's how, one of the ways we met. And that's exactly what Wes is doing. This is utilizing native species in landscapes. And so we will be doing trainings. And I've already spoken with the library. They have a seed bank instead of like actual bank, but they actually give seeds out to people. And right now they're doing mostly fruits and vegetables, but we've talked about maybe even doing that with some of the seeds that people will see out there of the flowers. So there will be signs identifying the flowers, the benefits that they provide to our wildlife, and then they can go into the library and collect some of those seeds to bring home.
A lot like the Russian olive that the DNR was giving away free for decades.
I will say I am humble enough to know that all the brilliant ideas I have today may be the autumn olives of tomorrow. But I do my best to try to make sure we don't replicate those.
Okie
errors.
dokie, we'll be watching.
Thank you. If not, I know some Boy Scouts that'll help me remove it.
Thank you very, very much.
I'd like to make a motion that we consider the resolution to establish Friendship Park.
Shipley seconds the motion.
To consider or approve?
Approve. To
Same
consider
thing
the
here.
approval. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Left that word out.
That's a motion by trustee Kessel, supported by trustee Shipley to approve the proposed resolution establishing Friendship Park. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Trustee Shipley,
Yes.
trustee Kessel,
Yes.
treasurer Corrstange.
Yes.
Trustee Nordhook.
Yes.
Clerk Slater, yes. Supervisor Lesbrunz.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Item 078-2023, resolution to approve the design and funding of Wycliffe Trailhead Park. Ms. Mannion?
Again, I want to give a disclosure here. I have done a lot of research in the last couple of weeks on this property because of the fact that I was not here during the acquisition and the development stage, and really trying to get an understanding of the essence of this park and the purpose of this park. As such, I have read the survey that was given out to the neighborhood and the responses, and I was amazed at that 364 people from a neighborhood area responded to that survey. So this is clearly something that people have a lot of opinions on. Let me just say it that way. So what we presented here is something that I want to stress was really well thought out. It took 2 Parks Committee meetings to discuss this. There was a lot of debate. And so I expect that you may have some questions as well regarding what I'm putting forth to you tonight. I did try to include some information on Exhibit A and Exhibit B that supports the decisions that the Parks Committee made. The first one is the design that was chosen. Again, this was not chosen just by the Parks Committee. They put that out several times for public input, and we did receive feedback from that. But this is the final design. You will notice, again, this is stressing low maintenance, minimal design. So this is a pocket park, right? This is a smaller park. This is not meant to be like Peace Park, but it is in a critical location within the township. And that is really the essence of this park and why it is so, in my mind, important, because it is on the pathways and it is such a visual within, I almost like to say it's the heart of the township. And so it's exciting to see that this is a natural area, but again, with minimal development. As a new parks director, I did come in with some non-traditional ideas. Let's just say that for the township. And a lot of it included ways of trying to reduce the cost. The development initially came out over $300,000 and we really did not feel comfortable with that price tag. And so what we wanted to do was take some of the things in-house. So creation of the natural trail, the fence that will protect people from children from running out into Cascade Road. A lot of the native plantings will be put in by volunteers. Again, that trail, we will have a work day we have scheduled at the end of the month. You're more than welcome to join us. And we will be chipping wood that's out there and creating the trail. And then the others, again, are lower cost items, including a vault toilet. So one of the ideas that was really stressed within the Parks Committee, and again, it was discussed lively, was the need for a restroom. Because this, as you'll notice on the park survey, number 2 and number 3 in the top priorities were restrooms. And the mother in our committee said, every park needs to have a bathroom if you have kids. And so we think about this as being a park where kids will be riding their bikes to it, having a picnic. They're going to need a place to use the restroom before they ride their bike home. So, but a vault toilet will lessen the cost by not requiring us to hook up to the city water. And also for my friends at Ottawa County Parks who have soon to be the second finest vault toilets in the state of Michigan, because we will have the best, they actually are lower maintenance. And if you think about the lower population of people that might use this park and need that bathroom, that's okay. We can have something that's a lower maintenance. Yes.
Couple things. One, I do think the survey that you're referring to came out to the whole township. So it's not just the neighborhood that's supporting this park, it is the whole township. One of the things that I think is very important to people who do not live with access to the trail is to have the trailhead park. So they have a place where they can park and be a part of the trail system that their tax dollars are supporting. So that's one point. The other point I just want to make is a former Parks Committee member. I was part of the public comment sessions, and I know you had talked about the children and the toilets. I was very enlightened to hear from a lot of elderly people who also walk the trails that we have, but they need to have a rest stop partway through. And so they really wanted the bathroom there as well. It's not just for the children. I think this park is important for both aspects of our community. And so there's a lot of elderly that spoke up at the public comment sessions that really wanted bathrooms. So
That's great to hear. And I apologize on the survey. I wondered how there were so many respondents.
that's why.
But it was titled Neighborhood Survey.
Which is weird, but it was the whole community that
Thank you.
supported
That-
the park, which is why there were so many, but it also shows how important it was to the whole township, not the people that live there. Everybody thought this was very important. One other question I have is looking at the trails, and I know one of the things that was really important to some people as well, and it should be to all of us, but to make sure that a portion of this was handicap accessible.
Yes.
And I believe by looking at the map that you've shown us, that there is a portion of this that is handicap accessible as well, correct?
Absolutely. When you look at the map, and again, the portion that we will do in-house is the tan loop there, that will be wood chipped, but the gray loop will be chips and fine, and that will be fully accessible. Also, we are very soon going to put out our picnic table, our first picnic table out there, and it is a fully accessible picnic table that will go right off of the pathway.
Wonderful, wonderful. I just always think that we need to, especially when we talk about parking downtown in the village area, that we really have to be mindful of those that need handicap accessible within our community, especially inside of our parks.
One of my favorite stories from Ottawa County Parks is one of the people who was fiercely opposed to putting in their trail system, one of their paved pathways, after it was built, was one of the greatest users because he was in a wheelchair and had never been able, and he was daily using his wheelchair, and he came in and humbly said, "I was wrong."
Yep. Yep, it's very important to have
It
it
is.
accessible to everyone. And I just wanted to commend you and the Parks Committee on bringing the proposed budget for this from $300,000 down to $200,000. That's huge. And I think that we all appreciate that you're really trying to be good stewards of our financial as well. And that's really important to us. Thank you.
And I think it was actually Trustee Shipley who said last time, part of the volunteer program is helping us reduce costs, but it's also getting them engaged so that they will be part of this park, this neighborhood park. Will their sweat and tears, hopefully not, will be involved.
So I have a question, Melanie.
Yes.
From what I understand, I see that when I drive by it every day, and there's mostly what you're going to do, and there's a lot of cleanup of the fallen trees, and
Yes.
brush, and all that business, right? And then create the path in through there.
Yes.
A lot of your initial work's going to just be cleanup.
Yes, I will say, and I want to stress this, because your expectations might be a little different than my expectations. So when we clean up, what we're going to do is naturalize it. Right now, there is a unnatural amount of timber in there that has been cut down. It has flat surfaces, so it clearly was a tree that was cut and looks unnatural. And it's because the neighborhood actually and the previous owners put the wood there because it was an unused space. So those are the things we will be cleaning up. We will not be picking up every piece of wood because wood is a critical part of any ecosystem. It's where we find the salamanders.
Could you update the board on the invasive species issue at
Yes.
property?
So one of the rationale for pausing this until I started was some members wanted the new parks director's input, but also most importantly, they were really concerned about the tree of heaven. Tree of heaven is an invasive that if you damage it, it actually clones itself and will spread profusely. And so it's really important before you do any construction that you eliminate as much as you can as far as the tree of heaven. So both the parks, the Kent Conservation District treated the tree of heaven both at the park and also at the church. So you'll see a lot of dead trees along Cascade. And we did a survey, the Kent Conservation District did a survey this spring to determine the mortality rate, and they felt that it was enough that we could start construction. It's a very difficult invasive to deal with.
Is this something that is coming out of the DDA budget too?
This is outside.
No, this is outside of the DDA. This is one that we will eventually maybe come to you with. We have been looking under various line items. There is a item under general fund that is for the development of land. It's
Capital
that's not.
outlay. Sorry.
Yes, thank you.
Capital outlay line, we have $300,000 in capital outlay currently budgeted within the general fund that has not been used to date. The only note associated with that line item in the budget that I can find, that was prior to my time, was destruction of the Thornapple River Drive property, which we will talk about it some other time, but it's only budgeted within there for $25,000. So we have more than enough. It is 9 months within the year to fund this project.
And I think that one was
300,000
specifically
budgeted for-
land improvements, if I remember correctly, to
Yeah,
that
it was,
capital improvement.
yeah, it's listed as capital outlay land improvements, $300,000, zero of which has been used so far.
Is that capital out? Are there multiple capital outlay?
This is the one
line
with
items?
it. It's within the general fund capital.
My understanding
Because
was.
the general fund capital outlays is what, and I'm not making an opinion either way, but this is what traditionally our prior engineering firms' charges, service charges were turned into. And we averaged over $500,000 a year to our prior engineering
It was
firm.
more, in 2020, we had over $2 million in engineering services for stuff that I have no idea what it was for, that was charged to this account.
So
So
we're not
this
getting-
is something that we are actually improving the land that the residents will see.
it's an actual capital outlay.
Imagine that.
So I think we've got plenty of money and this is money well spent. And no, we do not have plenty of money. But now that we've stopped the bleeding, we actually will have something to show for capital outlays. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, I make a motion that we consider the resolution to approve design and funding of Wycliffe Trailhead Park.
Support.
Shipley. What?
Does Shipley support?
I support it.
Okay, that's a motion by clerks. Oh, sorry, was there further discussion, trustee Shipley?
Oh, man.
That's a motion by Clerk Slater, supported by Treasurer Corstange to approve the resolution in full, approving the design and funding of Wycliffe Trailhead Park. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Trustee Nordhook,
Yes.
Treasurer Corstange.
Yes.
Trustee Kessel,
Yes.
trustee Shipley,
Yay.
clerk Slater, yes, Supervisor Lesbrunz.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
You too. Item 079, 2023. Resolution to establish streetlight district in Golden Valley Estates. Is this Manager Andrzejewski?
Yeah, there's two of them. I sent you all a memo. This thing has been hanging around for almost a year. And talked to Eric, and letters went out to residents. There was no objection to streetlights. And one of the things you learn is, if you're a manager about streetlights, is you better check with the residents to make sure they want it. So these have all passed that test, and it's $100 installation for each one. And Jim, I could not find out, but in other instances where I was, the township usually pays for the electricity for those streetlights.
Yeah.
Jim had asked me to find out, I was trying to find out whether or not the subdivision does it or the township does. And I believe the township pays the electric bill, and the electric company installs the poles and the lights for $100 each.
Yeah, in our neighborhood, our neighborhood association is paying the electric bill. And we get billed for that each year.
So anyway, the subdivisions want them, the people want them, so we would ask that you vote yes on these and get these installed.
And just for the public, what is this locate? Where is
It's
Golden Valley Estates located?
in the,
60th and TRD.
yeah, there's two of them. I put the addresses in the memo.
So 60th and Thornapple River Drive, this new residential development, which is also, just for the public that's listening, where there was a proposed full on and off expressway ramp in the airport access study. So for those of us who are paying attention, especially those residents who are about to get two streetlights,
You're welcome.
it helps to pay attention.
I'll make a motion that we approve the resolution for the establishment of the streetlight district.
Shipley supports.
It's a motion by
Yep.
Trustee Kessel, supported by Trustee Shipley, to approve the resolution establishing the streetlight district in Golden Valley Estates. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Trustee Shipley,
Yes.
trustee Kessel.
Yes.
Treasurer Corstange.
Yes.
Trustee Nordhook,
Yes.
clerk Slater, yes, Supervisor Lesbrunz.
Yes, motion carried. Item 080, 2023, resolution to establish early voting polling location. Clerk Slater?
Yes, with the passage of 22-2 last year, the people of the state of Michigan thought it was a good idea to establish early voting by 9 days. So everyone is figuring out how they're going to do that, and we believe we should do it at Township Hall, which means there will be tabulator and staffing for those 9 days. Those votes will not be, those ballots will not be tabulated until election day, along with all the absentee ballots. This gives people the option to come in and cast their vote into a tabulator 9 days before the election. So starting it's either Saturday or Sunday before, up to the Sunday before. So we're required to do it, basically, so.
Or approval
So
is
the
essentially.
one spot the one place we're gonna have it is at the township hall though. right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, because that's where our staff is. It
Yeah,
makes the
it
most
makes-
sense.
lots of sense,
So-
very accessible.
Yes,
And it's pretty centralized to the township.
it really is.
It's not off to one side or the other. With that, Shipley makes a motion to establish the early voting polling location at the township office.
Support.
It's a motion by trustee Shipley, supported by treasurer Corrstange to approve the resolution establishing the early voting polling location as stated. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Trustee Kessel,
Yes.
trustee Shipley,
Yay.
trustee Nordhook,
Yes.
treasurer Corrstange.
Yes.
Clerk Slater, yes. Supervisor Lesbrunz.
Yes, motion carried. Item 081-2023. Resolution to rescind Article 9 and Article 11. I think that's Roman numeral, or is it
15 and
16?
16?
16. 15 and 16, the connection requirements. Manager Andrzejewski, would you like to walk the
This,
board
this
through
is
this?
a cleanup. If you remember a couple of meetings back, we postponed or extended the moratorium until October 1st. So this will once and for all put this to bed. And the easiest thing to do, if you look on your paperwork, is to take out two sentences. One is under the water sewer, one is underwater, one is sewer, but they both say the same thing. And they say, upon the sale of a single family or multifamily residential structure within 90 days. So what that says is if someone were to sell a property and there was a water line there, they had to hook up, this will get that out of there. So they won't have to do it. Okay. And the same thing with the sewer. Now, as trustee and Timmy there said a few meetings ago, if someone's septic system were to fail and the water and the septic line was there, water line was there, it's covered by the county health department resolution anyway. So this takes away that we are forcing them to do it. Okay. It's a good thing to do.
Let me just give a little background as to why that was adopted, even though the formal meeting that was adopted, I wasn't here. I was in the hospital, unfortunately. But we talked about it beforehand. The township had made a motion, it passed unanimously, that we waive all special assessments, and they varied from 7,500 to so the largest one I saw was 22,000, depended upon footage on the properties. We had people that what happens and was they'd advertise their house for sale. And sometimes there wouldn't be a sewer and water or well and septic inspection, and then the buyer would buy it and then didn't get stuck hooking up because there was a failure. So we felt that that hooking up within 90 days of the sale of the house could be a negotiable item. It didn't have to be paid, as Andrew said, by him. It could be paid by the buyer as well. They could negotiate that. So there was a rationale in why we did what we did. We didn't just willy-nilly say, hey, you got to hook up in 90 days upon sale. We had complaints about people that had, and I will admit that they should have put in a purchase agreement that they subject to well inspection, well and septic. And they didn't always do that, and they got stuck with the bill as soon as they closed on a deal. They weren't happy. So we haven't had very many hookups. We've got some water and sewer in the township. And the only time they're required to hook up is if they have a failure. And so we added that into it, and it was partly because of the complaints that we had gotten from people that got stuck paying water and sewer bills upon the purchase of a home. So I want to give a little background. I'm not opposed at this point to waive it or to do away with it, but there was a rationale. It wasn't done just on the, and Sue, you were here when we did that. So if you have anything you want to add, but we had rationale behind putting that in there, and we didn't have too many complaints, although sellers didn't like to have to pay the cost of hookup, but a lot of times that was negotiated with the buyer. So just wanted to add that.
And what was the rationale for then the moratorium on it in May?
COVID,
But specifically, how does COVID affect?
there
Those
weren't,
facts.
houses weren't selling and we felt that it was an undue burden if we continued it. So we put a moratorium during COVID to expire. When was that? I think.
Last year,
Yeah,
last June or
yeah.
something, yeah.
No, it was May 2020, which was right 3
years
months
ago.
before the primary election. And this was a hotly contested public issue.
Until June 30th of 21. It was put in there.
I just don't understand the rationale why specifically COVID negates the rationale for passing it in the first place.
We didn't pass the ordinance because of COVID. We passed the moratorium.
Right. I just don't understand how COVID changes the logic, the original logic. I'm not following it.
Well, that's why we did it. And it was until June of 21, June 30th of 21, not 20.
No, I just said the moratorium was passed May 2020.
Right.
And then for some reason, staff management it wasn't even realized that we never handled it or followed through and it had expired. And then thank you, Manager Andrzejewski, for bringing that to this board's attention.
It's time for this one to go.
It doesn't make any sense. And then the way it was handled afterwards makes no
It's
sense.
very punitive to homeowners. They have a perfectly good well or a perfectly good septic system and then be told you have to destroy that and hook. So it's time.
I agree with Timmy. I think that this was a burden on property owners trying to sell their house. And I think it's on the owners and the buyer's responsibility to have those things inspected prior to signing the paper. And with that, Shipley makes a motion to rescind Article 15 and Article 16, the connection requirements.
Second. So motion by trustee Shipley, supported by Supervisor Lesperance, to approve the resolution rescinding Articles 15 and Article 16 regarding mandatory hookup requirement as stated. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Treasurer Corstange.
Yes.
Trustee Shipley.
Yes.
Trustee Nordhook.
Yes.
Trustee Kessel.
Yes.
Clerk Slater. Yes. Supervisor Lesperance.
Yes. Motion carried. Thank you for the comments and coming tonight on that. Having no discussion items tonight, Article 11, public comments. This is the time to comment on anything, whether it's on tonight's agenda or not. Good evening, Ms. Chris. Welcome.
Hi, Dorothy Cribbs, 1980 Deerfield Court. I've noticed the Hope Network bus traveling around. It is on the street going from Kraft past Goodwill back through, and I don't know where it goes, but I ran into it twice going to my mom's house. She lives in the apartments behind Walmart. The bus stopped going west on there. It's only a 2-lane road. So that left only one lane for cars to go in, or around in either direction. And I thought, well, that's really strange. And it was dangerous.
Which road are we talking about?
You know, I had a hard time figuring out the name of it. There's no signs. I think it's Savoy or Savory.
You said it's
Is it behind Walmart?
Is it
It's-
the one that runs east-west or the one that runs north-south?
It runs east-west and it runs
Behind
past
Walmart.
Goodwill,
Yeah. So
behind
Walmart
Gordon
dealership and
Foods.
yeah.
I think
Behind
that's the
Gordon Foods and stuff.
paratransit,
Okay.
which is separate from the replacement of the Rapid.
Okay,
The paratransit has been in place for a long time, and that goes throughout the township on demand for residents who with mobility issues, seniors and
Well,
ADA
I-
compliant.
I go to my mom's pretty often and I happened to run into it twice that day, parking like right before the drive that goes into where Big B Coffee and Goodwill are, just stopped, put his flashers on, blocking the road, going west. And the second time I was going around it on the way to my mom's, on the second time I was going around the other way. So I stopped, you know, he had his window down, and I said to him, you're blocking a whole lane of only 2 lanes. You need to stop someplace else. And so anyways, then I noticed another day that he was down the road a ways back closer to Gordon Foods, but again, stopped with his flashers going, and you have only one way or one lane for both directions. So I don't know if there's anything that we can do about that. It just,
27th Street?
No,
Really?
it's actually on this little side
It's
street.
the one that runs behind the Volvo
It goes-
dealership and.
It's behind, it actually goes from Tanaz, the hair salon, behind Gordon Foods.
You just made up your own name.
It's like
Yeah,
27th
that
Street.
Yeah.
But a lot of people drive on it.
Too
So
fast.
here's the thing.
Yeah.
I'll talk to Scott over at Hope Network.
Okay.
I think what you have to consider is, first of all, that one of the stops is Goodwill.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
he probably should be parking somewhere in front of Goodwill. But even so, from what you say, they're supposed to only stop for 2 or 3 minutes. And I know there's a lot of what ifs out there, but the chances of someone coming by at the time he's stopping there is probably not that great, but I'll speak to them anyway. Okay?
There were actually like several cars that were trying to go in both directions. It's actually traveled pretty heavily in my
Well,
dangerous.
I'll mention it to him that not to park on the side, but to
If they
park.
could pull into the parking lot in front of Goodwill,
Well,
that
they're,
would be
they're
better.
supposed to pull in front of Goodwill and park there for just a few minutes and leave, because if people don't come out of Goodwill or going to Goodwill, there's no use sitting there for 10 minutes.
Yeah,
Okay,
but I would suggest they pull into that parking lot. There's a lot of
Well,
room in that.
I will
parking lot.
I'll bring that
Yeah.
up to them. They'll have to decide where they park.
Yeah,
Okay.
because it's blocking a street that you have 2 directions
Mhm.
of traffic.
I understand.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so, thank you.
Mhm,
Thank you.
mhm.
Commissioner Bujak, welcome.
Good evening, Walter Bujak, 6639 Thornapple River Drive, your Kent County District 21 Commissioner. I had a couple comments. First, I'd like to comment on the Attorney General's lawsuit against the airport. And just wanted to let you know that I'd like to go on public record saying that I'm not in support of the Attorney General's lawsuit against the airport. And the reasoning being is because I really believe the Cascade Township Board has taken care of this situation, and there's no need for interference by the state. And the state attorney general is a little late in the game bringing a lawsuit when the township has already settled their lawsuit, and you've already put in place, you haven't settled.
No, I was going to ask you, the supervisor just learned this week that the Kent County ARPA funds, $3 million that were put in, dedicated towards PFAS remediation haven't actually been finalized. So we do need the assistance of higher government. And we can talk about that later, but we appreciate the Attorney General's involvement in this case, and we need it.
Oh, really?
And as the county commissioner, perhaps you could talk to the powers that be so that we can get that ARPA funds finalized, executed in our hands so that we can actually do something with it, because this board was under the impression that it was already handled.
And I thought you already settled your lawsuit with the town, with the airport.
There's a settlement agreement in place, but that agreement is not all encompassing because there's some moving parts and we don't have the water system set up. And right now, we just learned recently that the $3 million ARPA funds that we supposedly, had towards this project have been delayed without good explanation. So as the county commissioner, if you could look into that, it'd be very much
Absolutely.
appreciated. And if you want to pass the message around, along to those at the county, that we thought it was resolved, but the language that they put in there that required Cascade Township to waive any liability towards the Gerald R. Ford Airport as a condition of us receiving those ARPA funds, it'd be really appreciated if that was actually removed, consistent with our understanding that it had been taken care of.
The other point I want to make too about the Attorney General.
So I think there's some mixed messaging here.
Lawsuit will.
Yeah, it
also
sounds like mixed
encompass-
messaging
Yeah.
because I thought
And it's
that
not on the print.
that had been removed
So
and
did
that had
we.
been,
So did we. And you know where we learned about it hadn't been? Last week, when I was sitting next to the Kent County Administrator and he asked about it casually. And by the way, if those aren't allocated to Cascade Township to help residents with PFAS remediation, it's required that they be reallocated to a different source on October 1st. So we do need the Attorney General's
Is-
opinion, and this
is-
isn't a done deal.
Also, the Attorney General's lawsuit also includes
Cleanup.
environmental cleanup within the river, it sounds like, for PFAS levels within the Thornapple River.
Which
is
has not
something
been addressed at
addressed.
all to date. And as someone who cares about the river yourself, I think it's really important.
That's the important, one of the biggest pieces to me with her lawsuit that I was
Huge,
really excited
huge.
about was Eagle's addressing the contamination within the river as well as the well contamination. And I think that that is a huge thing for the residents and for the whole community of Cascade.
And I will say that the settlement agreement that the township signed and executed says that if those, that the airport is not responsible for, grant ARPA funds or different funding sources that aren't actually in place. There's language in there that would that allow them to not be responsible for that, even though anything that's not, that's left over after all the funds are secured and, anything not covered is the airport's responsibility. But it's interesting that we learned last week that those funds actually haven't been secured, and the language arguably allows the airport to not be responsible for any difference in making that up.
well, it's
So
a good thing I came then.
It's a
tonight
very
because-
good thing you came. I was going to keep my mouth shut, but the PFAS foams are still there. So I think we completely disagree with the,
Well, then I rescind my comments about
but
the,
if you want to pick up the phone and contact your colleagues, it would be most appreciated by your constituents.
okay, great. And then I do have a secondary comment, and it is about the Thornapple River watershed cleanup that's going on in the river this weekend. And there's also the El Grow event going on at the Ada Park, the Legacy Park, between 3 and 5 o'clock. I encourage all of you to attend. It's being hosted by the Lower Grand River Organization of Watershed and the Thornapple River Watershed Council, and hosted by the Ada Parks Department from Ada Township. So hopefully we'll see you out there on Saturday, 3 to 5. And I will get back to you on your request. Thank you.
Commissioner,
Thank you.
Could you address one more thing, please?
Yes.
Because I heard from Commissioner Dave and asked him and sent the same email to you about your view on the sustainability park. Are you for or against it?
At this time, I'm for the concept, but we're working on establishing a better understanding of the financial relationships with the business partners that are associated with that concept. And right now, that's all on hold at the county.
Yeah, I heard it's, the commissioner told me it was tabled until October. And there's 3 talking points. I was going to address those, but I'll ask you. The $80 million bond issue, the company's financial condition since they went out of business in California, and then the item that all the trash must be taken to the county landfill. There's no choice. If you don't want to address those, it's okay.
The concept is correct. You're correct. All the trash has to go to the sustainability park. The $80 million bond is, part of the approval process. And again, the county hasn't taken that up. And the concern is, as you mentioned, the financial aspects of the partnership with Anaerobia, I believe is the name of the
In
company.
California, they went bankrupt.
Correct. They went bankrupt there. So big concerns with that particular issue.
I don't want to put you on the spot. I just wanted to hear your
No,
view, or I think
sure.
everybody wants to hear your view, because I heard from the one commissioner, but I didn't hear from you.
I like the concept of not digging more holes and making more trash dumps. I have visited all of the facilities in the county, recycling and renewable energy that's being done on the west side of Grand Rapids. And I've been to the trash dump. I've actually been standing out on the garbage dump, watching them dump garbage out there. And it's really doesn't make sense to continue that concept. But again, there's risk involved in going with a sustainable business park. And I urge all of you to, become informed there. If you go out to the county public works, I believe there is a presentation there on the sustainable business park, and you can get more information there through Access Kent.
And again, thank you. I didn't want to put you on your spot, but
Well, it's
I
okay.
wanted to hear your view on that.
And I will get back to you on the ARPA funding.
And thank you for coming tonight. Also, this was set up before both of us were here, but I understand you asked to be, there's county commissioners that are appointed to the airport authority.
Correct.
You represent Cascade Township on the Board of Commissioners, correct, at the county level? And I just think it would be prudent that, because the entire airport lies within Cascade Township, that when the county selects members for the airport authority on the Board of Commissioners, that it seems more than reasonable that Cascade Township is represented on that authority. And the fact that we don't have any on that, while we have a county commissioner that, asked to be assigned to that, just seems like
It's a problem.
And I did ask to be assigned.
Well,
to
I
that.
think that maybe, that would be a good thing for those at the county, the same.
To reconsider at the
To
next.
reconsider, because it doesn't make a lot of sense that, the township that that incorporates the entire airport authority is not represented in the decision-making process.
I
So
agree.
thank you for your willingness.
Sure.
And it seems like that would be a reasonable decision. Maybe next year they'll reconsider.
Hi there, again, Scott Van Salkma. I'm still asking about Peace Street. I know that it's an older road and that it's, if we try bringing it up to modern standards or what have you, but who determines whether or not it could be one way? I did talk to the only resident that lives on that street, and he says that when traffic gets backed up at the light at Thornapple, cars will just turn up the dirt road. It's the little dirt road right by the pet cemetery and Orange and all that. It's probably not even 100 yards long. And then once they get to the stop sign, a lot of people run the stop sign. And then there's also on that corner, there's a lot of vegetation. So it makes it more of a blind corner also. So, and I know the park or paths committee is looking at redoing the path there in 2026, but I don't know if that's anything that could possibly be even thought of, make it one way, cuts down on the traffic, and then it could still even then get paved also, because the one-way streets doesn't need to be as wide as a two-way street. Just a thought. Also, I went to the planning commission meeting last Monday regarding Wormies, and I was curious why it's not on the agenda tonight. And I understand there's probably not a whole lot of time from Monday when they made their decision to tonight's meeting. If it's possible, maybe next year, I don't know if you guys would want to do this, stagger the meetings. So then the planning commission is one week and the board of trustees is the next week.
I think they are, depending on the month, right?
Depends on how the calendar
How the
falls.
calendar falls, because I know we talked about that at the planning commission level last year when we set the calendar, was that it was a huge topic. Get ours the week before so that things would be able to make it to the next board. It has something to do with the calendars and how they fall every other month. It has something to do with that.
Gotcha. Is it like the first and third
Is something-
Mondays and
But if there's
Tuesdays
a
or something?
Day.
That's the problem, is I think the holiday pushed theirs to last week because theirs would have been Labor Day.
Mhm.
And so theirs came this week. And so that's why they're not on the same. Normally it would have been the first Monday, I believe.
Couldn't they have just pushed it to Tuesday instead? So then
It's
you
not
guys
that
don't
simple.
have
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Has to be one day, yeah.
Okay, all right. And then the other thing regarding technology, that the screens aren't working, the timer over there is not, I mean, just wondering why those things aren't going on. The screens were working on Monday, but they're not now.
We have a new timer. We've been in a bit of a transition and training, so we don't have that all up yet. That part I don't know, but that's the deal with the timer.
I don't think we have any presentations that needed.
Your time is up.
Melanie needed.
The timer was working, I don't know, but
Time.
but I mean, even still, they used to have the Zoom, you know, you'd see the cameras and what was going on or what have you. So, but it-
And I know that there's a room for, we've talked about when they do the library interior refresh, that looking at the audio visual and making improvements in that too. I think that'd be a good thing to look at. One-way streets.
Yes.
They can't say for sure, but short answer is the Kent County Road Commission makes that determination with input from the township, but they make the decision. And then as far as when they pave it, whether it's one way or two way, my understanding is they still go back to the actual surveyed center line, and there's still the width requirements and all that stuff. So on that little gravel street, that's one of the most, original 1800s
Mhm.
streets back when it was like a village.
Yeah.
Those trees would all be taken out and it would entirely be
Not that many
reshifted.
trees there though.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
one way, two way, the county has its requirements that are the same either way, I think.
Gotcha.
Just
All
to
right.
give you an on the spot brief
Yeah.
response, but it's definitely something to look into.
That's all I ask.
Appreciate the information. Hopefully he's stuck around.
Are we waiting for?
Hello?
Good evening, sir. Welcome.
Hi. My name is James White. I'm a resident of Grand Rapids. I was a rider on Route 29 and I have spoken to y'all on the last board meeting you had. And I did some research and I went through, and by the way, I did email some documents to Ms. Rose Prince and the rest of the board members. And thank you to the township supervisor for emailing me back that she got it, and I appreciate that. But I guess there were some issues with the Hope Network bus. I'm not sure if you guys are aware of this, but I was talking to a passenger on Route 5 who happens to still go out to Cascade Township. But I guess the bus goes by at the corner there. Route 5 does at 5 minutes after the hour and 35 minutes after the hour. So he has said that I guess the Hope Network bus has already have left that area by the time Route 5 gets there. So he would have to wait another 55 minutes for the Hope Network bus to come back around to go back out to Cascade Township to where he works. So in the meantime, he's walking from that corner out to Cascade Township to go to his job. So I'm not sure. He said he's kept calling Hope Network about this issue, and I'm not sure. Have you guys heard anything about it?
Not on this particular issue. Which, are you talking about the Aqueous stop,
Yes, ma'am.
the former art van?
Yes.
No, it's coordinated so that at Aqueous, they don't leave until the rapid bus also arrives at Aqueous. And I don't know how long you've been taking public transportation, but we've been watching, and I don't know when's the last time I was on a public bus that actually arrived on time. So the bus driver right there at Aqueous waits for that bus to hit that bus stop on 28th and Aqueous, and then he takes off.
Where does your friend work, sir?
He didn't. He said he told me somewhere by Walmart.
Okay. That's where he
Um,
would pick it up. Yep.
Yeah, he said the bus, well, the Hope Network bus gets that at the 3 poles there at 6:57, according to this document that I got from your website, right? And then it leaves, and then gets to Walmart at 7:03. So when the Hope Network bus leaves at 6:57, according to the schedule, the Route 5 hasn't gone by yet because it doesn't arrive until 7:05 in the morning.
Right, and again, I don't want to go back and forth with you, but I can assure you, and I'll call tomorrow. I can assure you, because I was there a few times, and the bus driver waited till he saw that big bus from the Rapid drop people off at Aqueous and waited to see if anybody was going to walk over. So I'll just reconfirm that with them. But they're cognizant of that bus arriving around the beginning of the hour.
Okay, I am just going by secondhand information because I had heard him talking to another person on the bus, and then that conversation about the Hope Network bus arrived, and then I spoke to him about it and got as much information as I could without me having firsthand knowledge of what was going on. But I just wanted to relay that information to one passenger rider trying to ride the Hope Network bus. But I'd say, so in about 4 months, I hope you will see that maybe, because I see that the Hope Network bus is only going out 75 runs a week compared
30
to
seconds.
what the Rapid bus was doing about 177 runs a week. And you're paying the same amount of what you're paying Hope Network, $90,000 almost, compared to what you was the same amount that you would pay to the Rapid. I'm just not sure how you figured that cut in service is benefit
Time.
Well,
anybody. Thank you.
there's a lot of material on this, and we spent, the
Yes,
DDA,
there
and the Transportation Committee spent a full year. We really appreciate you passing along the information. It's funny, the Rapid wasn't forthcoming in the ridership information, but part of the problem with the Rapid is that there were 12 stops east of Meyer when the ridership information we had said that it was nominal. And unfortunately, they were unwilling to reduce their schedule, which was like almost every 30 minutes up till 10 o'clock at night, 12 stops. And we simply didn't need it. And then we offered them, 5 different alternatives. I think all of us on the DDA thought that there'd be some flexibility. And the response we had from the Rapid was, this is you take all of it or leave it. And they were unwilling to negotiate. So we know it's not perfect, but the flip side is we actually get data from the Hope Network, and it's a flexible route based on actual ridership. So we appreciate the feedback, and we'll continue to monitor it closely. But as far as good use of taxpayer funds, it was a no-brainer. Thank you, sir. And also thank you, Manager Andrzejewski, for working so hard on this. We got it up and running in 3 weeks?
3 weeks, right? And anything needs tinkering with, so.
100%, but it's up and running. And then the initial route was based on the Rapids fixed route, so that riders, there wouldn't be a disruption. And then thankfully we can tweak it to make it
A little better.
more useful. Any other comments? Tonight, we have 2 managers. Manager Andrzejewski, who has stepped up and done a fantastic job since Manager Swayze resigned, and we so appreciate his help. I think everyone noticed the difference. And then also our new manager, full-time, Jade Smith, is also here tonight. So manager comments plural.
Yeah, well, first of all, it's been an enjoyable stay for me here. I thank you all for working with me. I thank the staff for working with me. When I came here, I said to myself, I like sports and I've always done sports. I said, well, you're the backup quarterback. what's the job of the backup quarterback? The job of the backup quarterback is to keep the team running and win a few games. And I think we've done that. We've kept the ship afloat. We've waited for Jade. Now he's here. And just a couple of things I'm going to point out with the help of the board and the staff. We made some necessary personnel changes, and now we have a fully good staff with very good employees. Not that the other ones were not, but there's always improvement. So we made the necessary changes. We firmed up and we made sure now everybody knows what the purchasing policy is, how that is to work and how that is to be followed. So that was a big step. We give more financial information to the board per Jim's recommendation. And I think the board and especially the committee, Personnel and Finance Committee, who meets on the Wednesdays, now understands more of the budget, what shape the township is in, where all the funds are, all of that stuff. And Jade will have a little bit easier time, I hope, doing the next budget. So, and then of course the Hope Network bus. So as far as doing the backup job and making it a little better, I said to myself, when I leave here, somewhere down the line, someone will say, well, you know what? That Ted, he's a little different, but he did a good job.
It's exactly what we're saying. We've already said it, Ted.
All right. So anyway, the only other thing I want to report on, I'll touch a little bit on the thank you, Commissioner, for giving your view on the sustainability park. I did talk with the other commissioner and he brought up those three items, the financial condition of the company in California who went bankrupt, the $80 million bond issue paying for this project, and for all the trash that has to go to the county, no choice. And the county commissioners have tabled this until October. So it gives time, hopefully, for other townships and villages to get with their commissioners and give their input. So that's all I'm going to say on the sustainability project. The Hope Network, here's where we stand. The board and Jade, you will have 3 months of data. And once and for all, you'll be able to tell the people of the township, do we need a bus or don't we need a bus? Do we need public transportation or don't we need public transportation? So it's working fine now. It needs to be tweaked a little bit, but the one thing you're going to have is the data. So that's worth the time and expense. Wow, much trying. Okay, last thing. Commissioner, thank you for pointing out those events. But Cascade has a major event here on Saturday, and I hope everybody will come. And it's the Heritage Festival. And the staff, the promoter, have done a great job in putting this thing together, and I hope the people support it. So, one thing we did different. We're trying to make the festival, and Jade, you'll get a chance to look at it, self-sustaining. In other words, we want it to pay for itself. And we found some discrepancies in the liquid refreshment area. So we changed that. We have a new beer distributor, Thornapple Brewery. We have a new deal with them. We're not going to pay a lot of money like we did last year for people to serve the beer. So hopefully when this is all over, revenues equal expenses and we come out zero. So with that, again, thank you, everybody. I'm on my way back to the golf course on Friday, and I wish all of you the best of luck.
We really appreciate your help. We lucked out with you, Ted.
Just a couple of comments from my perspective. Thank you, Ted, for your service. It's pretty evident that you made quite the impact in the short period of time you've been here. Really looking forward. It's been a whirlwind of the first 72 hours since I've been here. First day, we had the PFAS announcement from the Attorney General's, and Channel 8 was in the news or was in the parking lot. So that was fun. But no, I'm looking forward to working with the entire board. I'm so thankful you have the faith in me to do the job that I've been assigned to do. Looking forward to work with the staff. Gotten to know the staff in the last few days, and what I see, I'm very impressed. And we've got a very dynamic group that is very capable of doing a lot of things. So I'm very excited for that. And then, of course, working with the residents and the businesses and all of the boards and commissioners throughout the township, because without them, that's why we're here, right? So looking forward to that. And I will be at the event on Saturday. So I'm looking forward to meeting many new people. Don't hold it against me if I don't remember your name the first time, but I promise you I will. So with that, I'm just looking forward to pulling off my sleeves and getting to work. So thank you.
Board comments.
I have a question for the commissioner. You live in Cascade. Have you heard anything about the PFAS issue on Hillsborough?
No.
Because we just got a note, we heard about it, I think, I don't remember exactly when.
2 weeks ago.
Well, we heard about before that there was some houses, but there's gonna be, I think, a presentation here
Yes.
next Thursday.
Eagle, so this, it's at the state level. County
Eagle-
officials will be here.
Eagle's gonna be the one doing the presenting? Okay.
Yes. And they haven't, as far as I've heard, we've got the date set. We coordinated, meeting here, but Eagle is still in the investigation stages. So they're testing and they don't have they haven't identified a source yet.
Mhm.
So we'll have to make some decisions as a board.
On the street for me that they found, so I'm curious.
Have they tested your well, Trustee Kessel?
Not yet. It's the topography is such where they found it. It's really quite a drop from where I am to where they found it, but I'm curious about the source.
Very curious.
Because it might be, I don't know. I don't know.
Right.
I mean, there isn't anything really around there that is like the airport, so I don't know where it could come from.
Water moves mysterious ways.
Yeah. Yeah, it does, but I'll be interested to find out.
Yes, very much. Any other comments?
I just
Go ahead, lady first.
wanted to thank Ted. It's been a joy working with you.
Thank you.
We've had a lot of personnel and finance committee meetings, and I just appreciate all of your knowledge and everything you brought and your, decision attitude when it comes to things that had to come up, and we just really appreciate it. Thank you.
You did a lot of good stuff. I would say cleanup, but that's not the right.
Improvements.
Thank you. Improvements. You did a
Thanks,
great
Ted,
job.
for all your help, all your work.
Yeah,
Enjoyed.
try to improve your game a little bit.
Yeah, I got a couple chips I gotta work on. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Ted. It's been a pleasure.
Mhm. Trustee Shipley?
Thank you. First of all, thanks for coming down to the meeting. As normal, there's a lot of discussion and a lot of things that are unknown, but the township put some talented staff inside of the office. We now do a lot of things within the township office that we used to pay literally hundreds of thousands of dollars to other people to do, private companies. So that, and obviously, we've added some specialty offices like the director of parks. So we hope great things come, but it only comes with input from you guys and anybody else out there in Zoom. So once again, I beseech you to bring your next door neighbor in. The first person that brings in 6 neighbors that haven't been here before, I will buy you a 6-pack of beverage. And lastly, Ms. Supervisor and new manager, I've noticed something that's a little disturbing to me as a resident that likes to keep our township looking neat. If you've noticed up there in front of the new car wash on 28th Street, there are cable TV and fiber optic cables hanging down all over the place. And I believe that they belong to Xfinity, because that's the last truck I saw up there working on them. And it's a pigsty. Not only is it a pigsty, but it's also a hazard. And if we are generous enough to, without question, grant these cable companies, telecommunication companies, a freedom to operate in the right of way in our township, I would expect the courtesy of them cleaning up their crap. And that's all I have to say. Thank you. And yes, I did work for AT&T years ago.
I thought that's why we selected you to go clean up those wires.
I'll clean them up. I've got cable cutters.
No, I have Xfinity, please don't. I need my internet.
No, thank you. Good comments.
That's all I have. Thank you for asking.
Their motion?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Support?
The motion by Clerk Slater, supported by Trustee Shipley to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.